Someone recently wrote and asked me if I would make a video on the subject of self-harm. Why do people cut themselves or burn themselves or maybe bang their head into the wall, do different things that are just so overtly self-destructive? And one universal thing that I have seen is that people do this when they are desperate, when they are overwhelmed, emotionally overwhelmed, when they're in horrible pain, when they're feeling horrible conflict within and they don't know how to solve that conflict. Sometimes it's acute conflict, sometimes it's long-lasting conflict, sometimes people do self-harming things many, many times repetitively, sometimes it just happens sporadically once in a while. Now, where does that torment come from? Sometimes it's acute torment, direct, interpersonal, something they're going through with a partner or a friend, failing career-wise, job problems, not having a job. But often the root goes very deep into unresolved childhood trauma, deep self-hatred, self-loathing. A lot of times they're replicating things that were done to them. Their parents hated them, their parents violated them. Maybe at some level they learned this as a pattern, that self-harm, self-violation can sometimes feel even normal. Then I think about something, I think this is something that made it very hard for me to make this video, because for a long time I was very confused at something that many people said. They told me this when I was a therapist and since being a therapist, about how they felt after they harmed themselves. Now, not everyone, but I heard quite a lot of people say that they felt comfort after they harmed themselves. They felt relief. They felt less pain. They felt relaxed even, like it released a certain amount of tension inside of themselves. But first I want to say that certainly that wasn't everyone. I knew a lot of people who felt guilty, who felt ashamed, who felt even more self-hatred after harming themselves. But then I really was wondering, what was it? What was going on with people who said they felt better, they felt comfortable, they felt less pain? They didn't even feel the pain, let's say, of harming themselves in different ways. And then I had an experience, it was almost 10 years ago now, where I had an experience that really woke me up. And I'd like to talk about that experience. It happened when I was going through a temporary breakup with a girlfriend with whom I was so deeply in love. It wasn't a breakup that was happening because we weren't getting along. Actually, it was just that I had a job in a different part of America. I was going to leave New York for 4 or 5 months, and she was actually going to go traveling at this time. We were parting ways. I didn't know if we were ever going to get back together again. Maybe she'd meet someone else. It broke my heart. I was in torment. And what was happening was, before I left to go to this job in a different part of America, I was going to go to my dentist and get my teeth cleaned. I was going to get a deep cleaning of my teeth and gums. And she walked me there. It was the last time I was going to see her for many, many months, or perhaps forever. She walked me to the dentist. We held hands. We had a long conversation in a park near my dentist. We kissed goodbye, and I cried, and my heart was in torment. I was feeling tortured on the inside, desperate and lonely and sad. I was feeling despair. And I remember going into the dentist's office, sitting down, lying down in the dentist's chair, and this dental hygienist started working on my teeth, grinding away plaque. And it's something that I normally really dislike. It hurts a lot. It makes my arms and legs shake. I hate it. I have to sometimes dissociate to be able to put up with the pain of it. I kind of feel like almost like it's a violation into my mouth. It brings up old traumatic thoughts. But this time, as I was lying there in deep emotional torment and despair and pain and sadness, this time, as she was grinding away at my teeth, it actually felt good. And I felt like I liked it. And it gave me a sense of pleasure. And it was incredibly confusing because I was thinking, this actually should be hurting me. And instead, it feels good. And what I realized was, and I realized this kind of at that time, but I really reflected on it afterward. I wrote about it a lot in my journal. And I realized that it was draining away my emotional pain. It was allowing me, in a way, to bypass my emotional pain. It was distracting me from my pain. It was allowing me to dissociate from my emotional pain. And afterward, I realized, I think this is what people have shared with me when they talked about feeling pleasure and relief and comfort and a lack of tension and relaxation even from harming themselves. And I talked about this since with people who have harmed themselves and told me about the relief they felt, and they said, yeah, it sounds like you were kind of feeling the same thing. Now, I won't say it was self-harm, obviously, by getting my teeth cleaned. I think it was actually self-care. It was just a pain, a physical pain that I was allowing to happen. And I think it's a strange part of human psychology that physical pain sometimes can relieve emotional pain. I don't really understand it. I'm sure there's a neuroscientific explanation, something they're probably on the same pain receptors, and one can cause the other one to, I don't know, X, Y, and Z. But what I will say, and this is also true of people who self-harm, is in my experience, the pain relief that I felt when I was getting my teeth cleaned didn't solve the problem of the despair I felt about losing my girlfriend. Temporarily. We actually did end up getting back together 6 months later or so. But the despair, the loneliness, the terrible pain I felt emotionally from breaking apart from her, that wasn't relieved by getting my teeth cleaned in any longer sense. Because what happened is 2 or 3 days later, the pain came back. And it stayed. Incidentally, getting back together with her, that didn't cure the problem either, because eventually when we did end up breaking up over the longer period of time, all that same pain was there. And this is what's so interesting to me. Actually, the pain and despair and torment I was feeling from breaking up with her, that wasn't really ultimately caused by the breakup. Really what it was a deeper, unresolved childhood trauma about not being loved by my parents, of being abandoned emotionally repeatedly by my parents, of being rejected by them. That was the core issue. That was my core unresolved trauma. That was being re-invoked. That was being woken up. That I was feeling as the result of breakups with my girlfriend so many decades later. And what I've found is that the cure for that deeper pain wasn't even getting loved by any girlfriend. That could never solve the deeper problem. The real solution to the deeper problem, it wasn't a girlfriend, it wasn't self-harm, it was deeper self-healing. It was grieving the unresolved childhood traumas that were buried inside of me, opening them up, finding out what was really going on. And in that way, the breakup with my then girlfriend was very helpful for me because it gave me an opportunity to look deeper into myself, to really see what are my real emotional dynamics underneath it? What are the real wounds and losses that I have in me that I really need to work on? And when I experienced relief from that pain by the dentist, that in a way took me even further away from knowing what the real deep trauma was. So it was like even there were layers on top of it. So when I think of people who harm themselves in different ways to distract themselves or help themselves dissociate from their acute pain, despair that they are going through, it's like they're doing things that even further take themselves away from their deeper healing. Dissociation doesn't help people heal. Dissociation takes people away from the core of getting into healing. Actually, the pain of what we are going through in our lives, the despair we are feeling, is our friend. It's horrible. The suffering is terrible. I don't wish suffering on anyone, but suffering is actually healthier than being dissociated. Being dissociated is the most primitive state. It's the furthest state from healing from trauma. Suffering, feeling that pain, knowing what that pain is, even embracing that pain, not necessarily choosing it or wanting it, not wishing it on other people, but if it's there, to face it, to be with it, to realize that it is coming from a really deep historical place. That is a healthier place. And then to take that pain and convert it into grieving. Grieving is what allows us to deeply heal, such that not only will we not need to feel that deep pain, torment, and despair in the same way, we don't need to play it out as much, but also we won't need to try to find different ways to make that pain go away here and now. Self-harm being just one of the ways that people use to dissociate. To me, self-harm is not an isolated thing that people do to make their pain go away. People, yes, they can try to harm themselves in different ways to make the pain and despair go away, but also using drugs, getting into romance, having all sorts of different addictions. People can use having children to distract themselves from their deep pain and existential despair. For me, again, the only way to really heal this pain at the root, such that we do not want now to have the motivation to try to dissociate from it, is to face it and ultimately to grieve it. And what a long, long, difficult process that is.